Welcome, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're zeroing in on a place that might just rewrite the book on human origins. We're talking about Cameroon. Seriously, the things we're finding in the sources, it's like its DNA holds some major secrets. I mean, what if I told you that the very earliest roots of human language, the actual birthplace of the HIV virus, and maybe, just maybe, the starting point for all modern humans? Good old point back to Cameroon. Sounds pretty wild, I know. But it seems this genetic landscape holds keys to, well, the story of all of us.
That's absolutely the core idea. Researchers are finding that Cameroon is home to some of the oldest and most genetically varied human lineages anywhere. And we're not just talking about, the mix of people there. Now, this is deep. Evolutionary diversity stretching way, way back.
Wow, that really changes the perspective, doesn't it? So our mission today is to really get into these frankly, astonishing genetic findings from Cameroon. We'll also touch on some pretty complex controversies that naturally arise from this kind of knowledge and, discuss what it all means for how we understand humanity and maybe the ethics of science, too. Okay, let's explore this.
Right. So to grasp why Cameroon is so significant, scientists sometimes call it a genetic time capsule. It's a useful way to think about it. For instance, there was a big study published in Nature, I believe. It showed certain groups in Cameroon have Y-chromosome lineages. That's the maternal line,
Yeah.
dating back over 200,000 years. I mean, that's older than almost anywhere else we've found.
200,000 years.
Exactly. And there's another key study. This one involved the Baka and Bakola peoples, forest hunter-gatherers there. It found they have unique mitochondrial DNA, that's the maternal line, that branched off from other human lineages around 120,000 years ago. So both lines of evidence point to this incredibly deep ancestry right there.
So, putting it simply, Cameroon isn't just like a place in Africa. It's woven into our DNA. Fundamentally.
Yeah.
Which makes you ask, right, what does this mean for the bigger picture, the whole story of human origins?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. A lot of geneticists are now suggesting that Cameroon and, the areas around it might be very close to where Homo sapiens actually first emerged. In fact, some findings are really challenging that standard out of East Africa idea, the one proposing a single starting point and dispersal.
Challenging it how?
By suggesting something more like a Pan-African origin. Think of it less like a single point and more like a network across Africa. And in that network, Cameroon looks like a really major node, a critical spot where a lot of early human diversification happened.
A Pan-African origin.
Yeah.
Wow. That alone should make anyone pause and think. But you mentioned it gets even deeper and maybe more complicated. Let's talk about some of those complex truths.
Yeah.
The sources bring up the origins of the HIV pandemic. What's the connection there?
Yeah. It's definitely a difficult but crucial piece of this story. So the scientific consensus is that the HIV pandemic began in southeastern Cameroon. What happened was a form of simian immunodeficiency virus, SIV, crossed over from chimpanzees to humans.
Okay. And when was this thought to have happened?
Likely in the early part of the 20th century. So a long time before HIV was even identified in humans, which wasn't until 1983.
Right, and the controversy.
Well, it gets complex. On one hand, some argue that perhaps because the virus originated in Africa, Western pharmaceutical companies and global health bodies were slow to react initially.
Oh, I see that angle.
But then the counter-argument is also strong. Others point out that the genetic mapping work, a lot of which actually used data from Cameroon, was absolutely vital. It was key to understanding the virus, how it evolved, and eventually to developing effective treatments.
So two very different takes on the history.
Exactly. And what's fascinating, or perhaps sobering, is that the truth probably isn't entirely one or the other. It seems Cameroon, through its genetic landscape, provided the world with the crucial knowledge. But maybe the world wasn't listening or wasn't equipped to act on it early enough.
That's a really heavy thought. And it leads into another dimension, doesn't it? The modern ethics around this genetic richness.
Yeah.
What about this idea of using Cameroon's DNA as a kind of baseline for human genetics?
Right, that's another layer entirely. And it brings up some really critical ethical questions for science today. I mean, is it actually okay to label the DNA from one country or one region as more original or somehow typical for all humans?
What are the risks there?
Well, you have to ask, could that kind of framing inadvertently lead back to old, dangerous ideas about racial essentialism? Or could it lead to exploitation, like African genomes being studied extensively, but without fair benefit sharing or proper consent from the communities involved?
That's a major concern.
It is. Or you could flip it. Is it actually empowering? Is it proof, maybe, that Africa truly is the genetic homeland for everyone? We know that big international projects like the Human Genome Diversity Project, the HGDP, they've heavily relied on samples from Cameroon, particularly from Bantu and Fang populations. They've been called, scientific gold because they're so foundational for global genetic comparisons.
Scientific gold. But then the question hangs there, doesn't it? Who's actually benefiting from mining this gold? Are the Cameroonian communities whose DNA is being studied properly protected? Are they partners in this research, or are they just data sources?
Precisely. These are the tough questions researchers and ethicists are grappling with right now.
Okay, amidst these really big, complex discussions, let's maybe shift gears slightly. What about some other unique facts, things about Cameroon that maybe aren't headlines but still connect to this amazing genetic story?
Oh, absolutely. There are some fascinating details. For example, Cameroon is one of the very few places where you can still find populations of forced hunter-gatherers, sometimes referred to as Pygmy peoples, whose DNA is relatively intact, genetically speaking.
Intact meaning?
Meaning it hasn't mixed as much with, say, agriculturalist populations over the millennia. So it offers this incredibly valuable window into pre-agricultural human life, deep ancestral lines.
Wow, like a living link to the distant past.
Exactly. And get this. A genome study from just a few years back, 2020, I think, found that Cameroonians actually had the highest interpopulation genetic variance in all of Central Africa.
Intrapopulation, so meaning within Cameroon itself.
Yes. It means there's so much genetic diversity within Cameroon that essentially no two people from there are really genetically typical of the whole country. It's just incredibly diverse internally.
That's remarkable.
It really is. And one more thing, Cameroon's linguistic diversity is also off the charts. Over 250 distinct languages spoken there.
250 languages, wow.
Yeah, and many researchers believe this linguistic diversity actually correlates with the genetic diversity. It suggests this rare long-term coevolution of language and DNA side by side over thousands and thousands of years, a sort of biocultural evolution happening together.
That connection between language and genes. That's fascinating. Okay, so we've journeyed from like the dawn of humanity through the complexities of disease origins right into the ethics of modern genetics. It's a huge scope. So thinking about all this, what does it really mean for you listening right now as you piece together the human story?
Well, if you connect all these dots, Cameroon starts to look like much more than just a country, It's almost like a mirror reflecting what humanity once was, maybe, and holding keys to understanding how we became who we are today. Whether you're looking at ancient migrations or how diseases jump species, or even how languages spread and change. Cameroon seems to be standing right at the crossroads of it all. Its genes, its people, they tell stories that are so much older than any modern map or political border, millennia older.
Yeah. So here's something for you to really chew on after this deep dive. If Cameroonian DNA is truly this ancient, this foundational, should we maybe rethink what we usually call the cradle of civilization? Is a term even accurate or too simplistic? And are we, as a global community, especially in science, really giving African nations like Cameroon enough control, enough agency over their own genetic heritage? Or is it still mostly being collected and analyzed in labs far away, in the West? Is seeing Cameroon as the starting point of humanity helpful? Or is that just another kind of scientific romanticism that we need to be careful about? Lots to think about there. So maybe the next time someone asks you, hey, where do we all come from? You might just start your answer with, well, it's complicated, but researchers say. You really need to look in Cameroon.